Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So in today's video, as you can tell by the title, we'll be talking about this large winter storm that is brewing. This thing will be potentially delivering a lot of snow, a lot of rain, a lot of severe weather, a lot of strong winds, pretty much everything that usually comes with some of these late fall or mid-fall winter storms. And I'm calling it a winter storm, obviously not because it's occurring in the winter, but because it's going to be bringing very wintry impacts across a good portion of the United States. So let's start talking about that. First off, I want to show you some models, right? So let's start off by looking at the GFS. Let's just jump right into this. So notice right now there isn't really any sign of any storm brewing or anything potentially ongoing. And for now, that is true. However, this quickly changes. What we do see is the southwesterly flow, that there's a high pressure starts developing across the southeast. This turns the wind from the south-southwest, bringing a lot of warm air and moisture today across my area. It was a complete change around from the last few days where we had that very cool air that was situated across the United States from that cool down. Notice we have a storm that moves in onto the northwest. It's rather disorganized, but it has a lot of moisture, and you can see that it is producing a lot of snow and rain across portions of the northwest. The Bitterroots, the Grand Teton, the Cascades are going to be seeing a lot of snow with this. The higher elevated areas, obviously the mountain ranges, and then the southern areas are going to be seeing quite a bit of rainfall, which is also probably some good news. Notice this thing kind of intensifies, and intensifies pretty rapidly. We have again a continued southwest flow now from the help of this low pressure, and this pumps up a lot of moisture and warm air, so this storm could really kind of continue to strengthen and continue doing its thing while still being relatively kind of stuck in a non-optimal position. Notice that we have heavy snow at this point occurring across Montana, Wyoming, so this is now late Saturday. Notice how quickly this kind of came in and changed, right? I mean, this thing's not even in our viewing area tomorrow in the morning, but by tomorrow late at night it's already occurring across a good portion of the northwest, so it moves in very quickly, and you can see it starts wastes no time to start intensifying, bringing a lot of snow across the Wasatch in Utah, quite a bit of snow across the Colorado Rockies, and this thing really starts sending again a large swath of snow anywhere from southern Canada, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, all the way into even New Mexico and northern Arizona. Now notice the warm side of the system, there's showers starting to develop, but there isn't anything spectacular going on yet. However, this all changes late Sunday and into early Monday. We start seeing these showers develop more rapidly. And with the last few model runs, what we've been seeing is not as well of an organized system as what we were previously thinking for the plains. There's still going to be a lot of snow that falls across Montana, Wyoming, maybe even North Dakota, Canada. But the system kind of splits into two parts. So if you recall, yesterday the Canadian model that I was showing you was one of the few models that actually showed the system splitting into two parts. And I was saying that how usually the Canadian isn't that well trustworthy of the model, but yesterday was an example where it was early on a trend, and now the GFS and both Europeans show a weaker storm developing into two different parts, similar to what the Canadian showed. So see, that's why you can't always make those assumptions that one model is better than the other. And do note that there is going to be rain that develops, but again, it seems to be kind of too quick of a moving system for a lot of this energy to basically it's a bit far to the north, it's disconnected, and we see a second piece that kind of takes up a lot of the moisture, and it delivers quite a bit of snow, maybe even to the panhandles of Oklahoma and Texas, but especially southeastern Colorado, northeastern New Mexico, and this starts delivering quite a bit of rain, but you can see there's not much snow to this one. So let's just put this forward. Notice that by late Monday to Tuesday, the system, the first one is out of here. We have the second one developing. Now there are some models that show a bit more cold air behind us and show a bit of potential snow from you can see the northern side of this, but from the look of this, it will be mainly rain, and it will be relatively also quick moving, and it could drop quite a bit of rain across some of these areas. Do note though, we have another monster that moves into the northwest with even more precipitation, and it drops a lot of snow and rain as well. We also have some sort of activity across the northeast. What results as of that is still a little bit unknown. You can see at this point we are getting pretty far out into late next week, and you can see overall the pattern, regardless of what really happens, it remains active. You can see large storms moving in, and for the western United States especially, that is true. So let's take you through this first part of the storm and show you the total snowfall. Again, it's going to be pretty impressive. It may not seem like it because the system, is kind of hidden away in those mountains, but it's going to be dumping a lot of snow. So let's take a look at the western United States. You can see many mountain ranges picking up quite a bit of heavy snow. Again, nothing record-breaking, but definitely impressive for kind of like the widespread first big system. And that's the other thing, how just impressive it is, just how widespread it is. I mean, most mountain ranges you could think of in the West get some sort of snow. So that is definitely a widespread first system. It's not very localized at all. And if I were to show you the total precipitation, you can see obviously there's where the heaviest snow falls across the mountains. That's where it's going to be the most, but especially from that second part of that system, across the Midwest, and potentially when it connects with some moisture across the Northeast, that could deliver quite a bit of rainfall. You can see these precipitation amounts are actually pretty substantial. So that is something to kind of watch and note, as well as that could cause some flooding and whatnot across the plains here and maybe into the Northeast. Especially the Northeast is a bit concerning. They are technically seasonally dry, but they've been seeing a lot of storms recently, and more rain wouldn't necessarily be the thing that they're kind of what they're really looking for. Now let me show you the Canadian. If you recall, the Canadian was actually probably the most accurate model out of the GFS and European, so that was definitely a bit of a surprise, but it's happened before. Notice again, we have these southerly winds, right? It kicks up a lot of this moisture pretty far north into the United States, which is why, again, the system can kind of spin away in the mountains, producing a lot of snow while still kind of not being in optimal area of a typical storm. So again, this is late Saturday, early Sunday at this point. This thing's intensifying. 985 millibars. Another threat that could come with this is because of these strong winds, there could be red flag warnings, high fire danger across some of these areas. So some bushfires could be definitely occurring, and that is something to watch for. Again, you can see that once the system moves into the plains, its disconnect from the southern moisture is a bit too much for it to kind of form into a cohesive massive storm, so it splits away. The second one, you can see the Canadian shows a lot of potentially severe weather developing across the south, a lot of heavy rain at the bare minimum, and that makes sense. It's a strong area of circulation relatively, and it's pretty close to this moisture axis, so I'm actually kind of concerned about this. We'll have to watch that. Notice though, on its backside there is some decent snow it produces, and you can see the Canadian shoots that up into Canada, and the Canadian keeps the pattern active and shows almost an identical second little system developing there. So that would exaggerate some of the flooding issues if two, at once were to occur. You could see some pretty heavy rainfall amounts. In terms of total snowfall, you could see that the West, again, mainly is the area that's targeted, but the Panhandle of Nebraska is, fair game, western South Dakota, western North Dakota, and even into southern Canada. Now, let's take a look at the European model. Obviously, the European, a very good model, still, I would say they quickly adapted to what the Canadian was showing to both the European and the GFS. So, at this point, any of the model runs I'm showing you is fair game. Notice, again, there's that system. It really starts beginning showing tomorrow in the mid part of the day, and yeah, it quickly moves through the Northwest and begins accessing some of this moisture. A lot of snow, pretty widespread again. Some areas receiving some very heavy snow, and you can see the European is still one of those models that shows some more impressive precipitation further towards the north across the United States, and brings the snow a bit farther out into the plains before also splitting out into kind of two separate systems. Notice northern central Manitoba could get quite a bit of snow still out of this. Southern Canada, Winnipeg, Brandon, and whatnot, you're most likely going to be seeing some cold rain, maybe with a little bit of snow on the backside. But notice the European, just like the other models, does show the second part with quite a bit of these bright colors indicating either severe weather or heavy rain, and you can see it kind of drags it out. Doesn't really intensifying. You can see it kind of weakens pretty quickly, so that's interesting to note. But again, just like the other models, it keeps the pattern relatively active with multiple little systems and kind of events going through just the next 240 hours. Total precip, again, targeting the south here, southern plains with quite a bit of rain, but also the northwest, especially Washington and Oregon, right where the nearest to the Pacific Ocean. Total snowfall, assuming a 10-to-1 ratio, decent amounts to say the least. And again, the widespread nature of this is probably even more impressive than just the actual snowfall amounts. So that is what the European, GFS, and Canadian show. I do want to show you an ensemble. So this is basically 31 models that you can see. I'm zoomed in onto Midwest. This is the GFS family, and I could show you all 31 of them at once. And notice that there are some differences. So GFS, you can see some of them are showing more of a system that is a bit more organized. It's hard to see, and there's a lot of frames, and you can see there's a lot of blue. So for the most part, there isn't a single model that doesn't show a storm, right? So at least, that's good, and that would be kind of bad if that happened, because we'd still be, we're not that far out. And notice some keep it more retracted into the western United States, like this one you could see affecting not even eastern Montana, and some you could see are a bit further out into the plains. So it's still a little bit of a toss-up. I would say that, at this point, anything's still fair game, though we have seen a trend that is more kind of isolated towards the mountains. You can see those, some of them take out heavy snow pretty far east, and a lot of them, though, continue to show what the Canadian was kind of showing, just a quick dispersal, and maybe eventually that second wave, which some of them are showing here, could be producing a little bit of snow like this one further north, but it remains, or it seems like it will be predominantly rain with that. And you can see the pattern. It shows again another system later on, so, and the models start disagreeing quite extensively here, so we'll have to wait and see with regards to that and how the rest of these storms play out. That's just a little bit too far out. So that's the Midwest. I could zoom in onto the northwestern United States and show you this, as this is where that first part of the system will be occurring pretty intensely. Again, not that far out. A lot of these models are showing. It's jumping around, doing a crazy thing. All right, so again, you can see quickly bring that system in within the next 24 hours. It brings a lot of snow, rain, and intensifies, and you can see it's pretty resolute, I guess, the agreements with these models, and they move it out relatively quickly as well. But Monday, that system's out of here, but you can see a new one is moving in. In terms of total snowfall, let's take a look at that, and you can see that it gets lit up pretty nicely. A lot of these, again, these big mountain ranges picking up decent amounts of snow. And zooming in back onto the Midwest and showing you those snowfall amounts, you can see there's a bit more disagreements, but overall it's showing less of a plain system and more of a kind of front range of the Rockies type storm. Last thing I want to show you before I wrap up this video is the National Weather Service Weather Ready Nation map. This is a map of hazards, watches, warnings that the National Weather Service issues to keep people warned and ready for the upcoming weather. Notice as of right now we do have some early winter storm watches across Idaho, Montana, and into Utah. These will probably continue to expand across all the areas that will be seeing that snowfall. Do note we have some early red flag warnings across Montana, Wyoming, South Dakota, Nebraska, into portions of Colorado, and Oklahoma and Texas. This will probably continue spreading as the fire danger will be pretty high. These special weather statements are also to do with elevated fire danger because of those, again, those very strong southerly warm winds that will be coming across for several days. And if you take a look at Montana, right, the probability of 2 inches of snow, pretty high. Probability of 8 inches of snow, lower, but the higher elevation still almost a certainty. So that is definitely something to watch for. Let's take a look at just southwest of Helena, the capital of Montana. You can see they have snow in their forecast. So that's like the big first snow of the season. And that will be these will probably be winter storm warnings within a short amount of time. If you're to take a look at southern Colorado, this is somewhere where we have a bit less confidence, because with that second part of the system, it could drop a lot of snow, but not necessarily. They are talking about that fire danger at first, but then later on it converts into more of a snow threat. Again, large cities like Denver, you're most likely going to be fine. You're not really seeing any of the snow. It's going to be confined to the higher elevations. So, but again, it's a big first snowfall of the season, so it's always kind of that little shock, the first big one, and so. It's also going to be coming right after, a very warm time period with strong winds, so it's going to catch probably some people off guard. All right, that is basically it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next episode. See ya. Bye.